Not right now, at least.
Okay, good. Right, afternoon, everybody. So last
Good
class
afternoon.
we would have done balance of payments, right? But I know it's a kind of heavy topic, and I think some persons requested that we go it over. Also, because not much persons were there last week, I think it's best that we really go it over and make sure everybody is okay with it, right? So
Alright.
let's start. Remember, I was telling you all the structure of the course and the way I did it was that we focus on the micro issues first, and then coming down to the end, we focus on the macro um, topics, right? Balance of payment is a macro topic. Macro meaning that it focuses on the economy as a whole as opposed to individual. We see when we did topics like, well, the basics like part-time production, all those other things, they would have dealt with the individual firm or the individual person. Those are micro issues. The macro issues now refer to the more complicated ones, if you want to put it like that. And it's more dealing with the entire economy as a large. All right. So let's start. The balance of payment is an account of a country's payments and receipts. Payments means what you give off when you spend your money, and your receipts is basically what you get back, right? Within a period of a year. It's important to note here that it's within the year period. Yes? Um, Now, remember, I want you to take the analogy that whenever you're thinking about the country, always remember it to some extent applies to the person as well. So, like for example, when we're looking at the balance of payments, think of it as your household account too. Don't you have to account for your money that money that you have coming in, and money that you spend,
Yes.
like per month? Right, you'll have
Yes.
to, right? So it's something like that. I want you to have that mindset or that analogy to the back of your minds, right? This balance of payment for the country, right? It records the money coming in, which is their revenue, right? And going out, which is your expenditure, the amount of money that you spend, right? It is concerned both with visible trade and invisible trade. And you notice that it is highlighted here. This is because it's quite important. Visible, the word visible by itself means that you can't see it, not so?
Yeah.
So it means that you could probably touch it too. So when you say visible, meaning you can see and you can touch, right? And invisible obviously means you can't see it. It's not available to the naked eye. So you cannot physically see it or physically touch it, can you?
Nope.
No, you can't. So it's like an abstract noun, right? Like, for example, if you want to look at it like that and you want to say love, can you see or physically see or physically touch love or honesty or loyalty? You can't. Those are abstract nouns. In the same way is invisible trade. It's an abstract noun. You cannot physically see it or physically touch it. Are we okay so far? Or I
No.
lost anybody is it?
Now we
Guys?
get it.
Okay, good. So let us take stock of what we're looking at so far. We already know what balance of payment is, right? It's the account of a country's payments and receipts. That means an account or a record of the country's money coming in and the money being spent. And that comprises or concerns the country's visible and invisible trade. Trade is an exchange, right? Visible means what you can't see and what you can touch. Invisible means what you cannot see physically and what you cannot touch physically, right? So let's break it down further. Visible trade means the goods that you can touch. Invisible trade refers to services because you can't physically touch a service. Can you physically touch the service you get when you go to dentist?
No.
No, you
No,
can't
I
physically
can't.
touch it, right? You can't. hence the name invisible trade, because it is a trade. You paid money in exchange for a fill-in or for a root canal or something like that. No, so doesn't that facilitate the trade? Let's just say Stu, we have a shop, and I go buy Stewie, and I buy a bread, and I give him the money for it. Didn't we trade something there? He gave me the bread, I got the bread, and I paid him for it. Right? That was a trade. Also, facilitated the trade there. But was it visible, visible, or was it invisible?
Both. Visible.
No, it's visible because I could have touched the bread. Not so?
Yeah.
Right. But let's just say we go to the dentist now. And let's just say somebody had to go and get a root canal done. Obviously, you had to have an exchange there where you paid monies for the root canal, right? But could you touch the work of the root canal? Physically touch it?
Oh, you feel it?
Yeah, you feel it because you know some kind of drilling going on. But can you physically touch that trade that took place?
But I pay for the dentist time.
No. Right. The reason why you paid for it, that means it's trade. That whole payment method facilitated the trade version of it. But the invisible version of it, can you touch the root canal, the job that was done?
No.
You could, exactly. Right. Perfect, exactly. Because the person, the dentist, would have studied, and that is what they do. That is their trade, to perform dental services, right? But you can't physically touch those services. So it is invisible. You all see the difference between the visible trade and the invisible trade?
Yeah.
Right. Sure, right? All right, good. Right. If at the end of the year, a country recorded more inflows, when you think inflows, what are you thinking?
The influx of money coming in.
Perfect. Yes, the influx of money. So you're foreign, and whenever you're doing trade internationally, you're always trading at foreign exchange, meaning US dollars. So when they're saying the amount of inflows coming in, it means the amount of foreign exchange you have coming in as revenue. Right? And outflows refers to what?
The opposite.
Spending.
Money going out.
Perfect. The amount of money you're spending, the expenditure. And what kind of currency you think the expenditure will be in?
Same US.
And exactly, same US. So let's think about it. If it is that you have to trade and you have to record the inflows and the outflows, or the amount of money coming in and the amount of money going out, right? Which one would you, as a country, a prime minister, what would you prefer to have? More inflows or more outflows?
Inflows.
Perfect. More inflows, right? That means more money coming in also.
Yeah.
Right. Good.
Yeah.
Good. So if it is that you have more inflows coming in, we call that a favorable balance or a surplus balance. Simply put, it means you have more money coming in into as foreign exchange. So that means you're exporting more. Because the only way a country can get more money coming in, right, as it relates to this part here, is if your export is high, meaning you're exporting more goods than you are importing. Exporting goods means you're selling more goods on the international market as opposed to buying more goods on the international market. Yeah? I lost anybody there, or are we okay with that part so far? Whenever you think balance of payment, I want you to always think import and export. And import is the amount of money you spend on bringing in goods, and export is the amount of money you spend on it. Yeah? Everybody okay so far?
Yes.
All right, good. I need to make sure we're okay at each step so we would know how we're going along. Yeah? And I don't want to lose anybody. So if inflows of foreign exchange are less than your outflows, right? This is referred to as a deficit or adverse balance of payment. I think that one is a bit self-explanatory, so we don't have to dwell too much on that. Yeah? It simply means that if you are spending more money importing than you are exporting, you would have a deficit or an adverse balance of payment. Yeah? Because isn't that a bad thing anyways? If you're spending more than you're receiving, that makes sense?
No,
No. Especially not if it's continuous, right? All right, so let's move on to the bottom there. Visible trade refers to trade in physical goods. That's exactly what we were saying before, right? So visible trade refers to trade in physical goods. For example, foodstuffs and machinery. Because you can physically touch those, not so?
Yeah.
Right, good. The difference between the value of import and export of goods is known as the balance of trade or the visible balance. I want you to write that down somewhere. You see all of the terms that we just discussed, and whatever it is that you have in bold, I want you to jot that down in your notebook, and I want you to review that as you go along. Let me know when you're finished.
Finish on this side.
Okay, good. I think everybody's okay or no?
Yes, I finished.
Okay, good. Remember, you would want to have what visible trade is. You would want to have what a favorable or a surplus balance of payment is. And you would also want to have what a deficit or an adverse balance of payment is. Right? Let's move forward there now. And we're looking at the difference between imports and exports. Right. So we know that is the balance of trade or the visible balance. So I want you to remember that part there. The difference being to take away. So we know once we take away the value of the imports and exports of the goods, we know the end result is the balance of trade, or which is also known as the visible balance. Now, when a total export figure is lower than the total import figure, this is referred to as an adverse balance of trade or trade deficit. I want you to be aware of the lingo or of the jargon. That is what we have to make sure we know. So jot down that part there. You can put it down as bulleted points. And then we're looking now at the invisible trade. So we know visible trade is with the physical goods, right? And invisible trade consists of three main types of transactions. So it's broken down into three things. First one is services, which is what we discussed when we discussed the whole dentist scenario. The second one is the interest, your dividends, and your profits. And the third one is transfer payments. For example, when pensioners get an allowance, or students get an allowance from their parents, right? And more considered a gift or a grant to like other countries too. What is the factors of production? You see those interest, dividends, and profits? What is the factor reward? Well, those are factor rewards, in fact. What are the factors of production for interest? It's a reward for what?
For business?
Yeah, but okay, what are the factors of production?
Capital, enterprise, land and labor.
Right. Thank you. Now tell us, what is this? Which factor, right, is interest the reward for?
Capital.
Perfect. Capital. And profits is for?
Enterprise.
Excellent. Enterprise. Say it like he wasn't sure yet.
Sorry.
That's right. That's right. I'll give you a blind. Right? But yes. So when you're doing a chart, let's do a chart here. So, you know, we would know, let's see, to make it easier. All right. So we know balance of payments, or we could put it as BOP, is made up of what? What we say is made up of again?
A country's payment and receipts within a period of a year.
Right, but it's made up of your visible and your invisible trade. Yes?
Visible and invisible. Yeah.
Right. So let's try something here. You know, if we were in a classroom, I would have drawn it. I have no choice. Invisible. Oh, trade. Right, so we're good there, right? Now, what is visible trade again, you know? That is broken down. Right, goods and services, right? Very good. So let's see. Yeah, we're including. Right, so goods that can be touched, right? And then we know for visible trade, it could be what? Three things here now. What will be the three things? Services. What's the second one?
Interest and profit and something.
Dividends is what again?
Money.
Yeah, but what kind of money, right?
Like grants and things.
No. What is it? What do you get? What do you have to get dividends? You can copy this down, by the way.
Yeah, screenshot.
Yeah, that's. What do you have to get dividends?
Franchise promise.
Shares.
No. Shares. Thank you.
Shares.
Shares. Dividends is the reward for investing your money into shares. And shares or shareholders are also called what of a company?
They have a direct interest in the stakeholders.
Right. Good. So they are also the part owners, right?
Yeah.
Right. Good. Can I take this part off now?
Yeah, so,
Let me know.
yeah, nice.
Everybody else?
I haven't taken it down.
Screenshot na right? I'll send
Can I
it.
still join?
I prefer
I'll
the
send it.
actual drawing, so it's
Yeah.
actually stuck in my mind.
Alright,
Because you see
thanks.
those screenshot things, you'll end up forgetting it even on your phone.
Nah, miss, I guess I might think now that.
Well,
I'll write it
that's
down after he sent it screenshot.
okay. All right, no problem. So take it off.
Miss.
Take off the chart here.
Okay, Miss. Thanks.
All right. Stewie, make sure I send it to him, huh?
I'll send it in group chat, by your guide.
Yeah, thank you. All right, good. Now we have to look, there are two accounts, and I want us to pay attention to these accounts here, right? Okay. That's now. All right, so let's look at the current account. When the balance of visible trade, and remember visible trade is traded goods that we can touch, is added to the balance of invisible trade, which is really services and profits and all these other things, the result is known as the current account balance. So if we look underneath here, you can see the formula, right? Exports of goods minus the imports of goods gives us the balance of visible trade, yeah? Or the balance of trade, call it either one. The current account balance is very important because it records a country's imports and exports, and it tells us whether a country is paying its way in the world. I want you to remember that or highlight it. I highlight it somehow that you can. The current account, always remember, is made up of the visible trade and the invisible trade. Remember, the visible trade is in goods and the invisible trade is in services. To find the visible trade, we take the export of goods and minus it from the import of goods. When we do that, we get the balance of visible trade or the balance of trade. That's for that part there. Now, if we're looking at the invisible trade, which we already know means services and take into consideration profits and dividends and so on, we take the export of the services and minus the import of services, and with that, it gives us the balance of invisible trade. So we okay so far? It's important, like I was saying on Sunday, see this section here? It's important for your multiple choice, particularly because it comes to the end of the paper. So you see from questions 50 to 60, somewhere around there, balance of payment question. All right. So for this part here, we want to be mindful of the formula. Now, in order to find the current account value, you take the balance of visible trade and you add the balance of invisible trade. Let me know if we have any issues with this part here so far. No? We okay then?
Somewhat.
So, okay, take 2 minutes, take it in. In the meantime, I'm going to get some multiple choice questions that we can work on here and to test ourselves.
Okay, miss.
So take 2 minutes and look over this part of the note here. Listen to this question here. The buying and selling of goods and services among countries is called what? Your balance of trade, your international trade, your balance of payment, or your international marketing. Let me repeat. The buying and selling of goods and services among countries is called your balance of trade, your international trade, balance of payment, or international marketing.
Balance of trade.
B.
Perfect.
B.
It's either A or B. What you're thinking?
I put B, man. I said B.
Nope.
I say balance of trade.
What did we say balance of trade was again?
Balance of trade is invisible trade as well, because invisible trade is goods and services.
Invisible is goods and services.
No, invisible is not goods and services.
Invisible is just services.
It's just services.
Right.
They say
But
trade
look back up here. Look back up here. Look at the difference in this first paragraph here. Sorry.
Corona.
So, Simone, check and see if you want to stick to your answer.
I want to stick to my answer. Balance of trade.
You sure?
Yes.
What do the rest of y'all think?
Yes, I was writing. What do you question again, please?
The buying and selling of goods and services among countries is called A, balance of trade, B, international trade, C, balance of payment,
International trade.
or D, international marketing. Why I say international trade?
No. Because it's country to country.
Yeah.
Countries.
Yeah.
Oh, you're wrong.
Because all it's saying, right? All it's saying is for buying and selling of goods and services among countries, right? But remember, balance of payment is an account, meaning you're written down about the import and the export. Confusing or what?
No, miss.
No,
Okay,
I
let's
said
see.
Simone,
What's
what are you
that?
thinking?
I still say in the wrong.
Why are you saying the wrong?
Ah,
I want to hear your explanation first. Why you think so?
Because you said, right? You were telling us about the goods and the services that I guess not. Repeat the question for me. Let me give a rebuttal after.
Talk off my throat just now, you know.
Oh gosh.
All right. Let's see. They say now the buying and selling of goods and services, right, among countries is called A, your balance of trade, B, international trade, C, balance of payment, or D, international marketing.
Right. The reason why I say that is because when I read the definition of visible trade, it was talking about the import and the exporting of goods.
Right. Okay. But read the entire thing, you know. I don't want you to just read part of it. You have to read the entire statement. So I'm repeating it just for you, right? Just for you.
Miss. The reason why I say B at the beginning, because you see, amongst country, that just sell out the whole question.
Yeah.
So that's why I say international trade.
What are you thinking now, Simone?
All right, if they say so, I got to go by this on my own. I got to go by this on my own.
You're saying why it's kind of tricky, and you have to be kind of careful with this whole part, right? I'm trying to see if I get the syllabus up here. See how we can go through this just now. We come back to that question though, but Dexter is right. Right? So let's look at another question though. Right? So let me see if I find another one. Y'all remember when we did all of those list of terms, and I told you it's very important to understand what it means, like import duty and all that kind of thing.
Yeah,
right. So here's this question, right? Which of the following types of restrictions limits the quantity of goods that citizens of a country are allowed to buy from overseas? I will repeat. Which of the following types of restrictions limits the quantity of goods that citizens of a country are allowed to buy from overseas? Is it A, import duty? Is it B, export duty? Sorry, is it C, export quota? Or is it D, import quota?
Of course.
What's going on there?
You say Bago, miss.
Who said that?
I don't know.
Why?
Read the
All
question
right, I'm
again,
going to read it over. I'm going to read it over even slower.
Wow.
Right? Just now. Oh, trying to get onto my drive here. Right, I'm repeating. Which of the following types of restrictions limit the quantity of goods that citizens of a country are allowed to buy from overseas? Right? Is it A, import duty, B, export duty, C, export quota, or D, import quota?
D,
Why is it that?
because to buy you have to bring it in the country. So it's an import, not an export.
Good.
I forget what quota and thing is, but I must say D.
Quota is the amount of goods.
What amount of goods?
The
The
amount you
quota
can
for
bring in.
something is the amount.
That the person can bring in or sell,
Yeah.
right? Good.
The answer.
So it's import quota, that's what you're saying?
Yeah, I put
Yeah,
D. I say D.
I said the as well.
What about the rest of y'all? Hello? What about the rest of y'all?
Everybody are gone silent.
Yeah, no? Everybody okay?
What's going on?
I'm not quite sure. Hello? Okay. Marina says the same thing. She's messaging on the chat.
Oh, yeah, that's it.
Okay.
No, that phone gone deliver everybody phone.
All right. So let's exit that then. Right. So let's continue. I'm reading out another question there for you, okay? This is a really nice one that you're supposed to know. Right? The term economic dualism, you're hearing it, right? The term economic dualism defines an economy in which one sector, A, is highly dependent on a local capital, B, highly dependent on foreign capital, right? C, overpopulated while the other is underpopulated, or D, technologically advanced while the other is technologically retarded.
Miss, I would go technically retarded.
Why is that?
Because it's a repeat question.
It is a repeat question.
Yeah. But
and I think that retarded will get a little excited.
That come in
how you remember it?
When any midterm.
The end of term, I think it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
The last part was it?
Was that?
The last part of the retarded.
Yeah, that's true. All right, so let's see again.
So, Miss, what's the answer for the second one?
What's the second one?
You only import quota.
Yeah, you were correct.
D, what?
Yeah.
You just want to hear it.
I know. Yeah, you were correct. Have no fear. Yeah.
Makes sense.
All right. Let me give you the other one. Which of the following terms defines the continuous rise in the general level of prices? Is it A, inflation? Is it B, reflation?
Yeah, inflation.
That was an easy one.
Yeah.
And because you'll probably hear me repeat that 10 times already.
Yeah.
You got
Since you started Corona.
Oh my God. Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. All right. So let's move on. I want to give you another question. That was June 2017. Let me see if I have that.
It's a hard one, miss.
But that's a repeat. I can't read it. Okay, here's this, but it's based on a table, right? So we have goods and we have services. So I don't know if somebody can take this down. Can somebody take this down?
Take it down.
Yeah, draw from 1, 2, 3, three columns and 3 rows at a table.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Right. In the first column, second row, you put in export, and in the third column, third row, you put in import.
Mm-hmm.
Right. In the first column, sorry, in the second column, first row, you put in goods.
Mm-hmm.
And the second one, the third one, sorry, you put services. So the 2 headings are goods and services.
Mm-hmm.
Good. Under goods for exports, 160 million.
Mm-hmm.
Under services for exports, you're putting 300 million.
Repeat that again, please.
Under services for exports, you're putting 300
160.
million. Yeah.
160. Import
No, that's
services.
for goods. That's for goods.
Down 6.
And the other one?
And the other one, you have the 300. That's for services under export.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Now, under goods for import, you're putting 120 million.
Mm-hmm.
And under services for import, you're putting 140 million.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the question is, what is the country's balance of trade?
Oh,
Okay.
Yeah. How do we figure out
This
balance
is how
of
they
trade
phrase
again?
it?
Huh?
This is how they word the question?
Yeah,
Because,
that is it.
wow.
miss
For
again,
the multiple choice, huh? This is for the multiple choice. I'm trying to get some more for you.
you can use the calculator now.
Yeah, you could, unless you're good at maths. No problem either.
So the imports were 280 million total, and the exports for services was 440 million. So,
I think we had an error there. In total, exports, including goods and services, is 160 million plus 300 million. That's 460 million.
I had 300 and 140. Okay. Correction. So then it would be 160 imports.
Yes. No, no.
260, sorry,
Yeah.
import.
260.
And 460 exports.
Correct. So they asked you to calculate the country's balance of trade. What is the formula we just learned about calculating balance of trade? Where's the one? Simone?
Yeah, look man.
Right. tell us how we calculated this balance of trade now, please. What's the first step we have to do?
You have to figure out if it's visible or it's invisible.
Right. So visible means what?
Export goods minus the import goods.
Right. And the export of goods here is 160 million minus the import of goods here, 120 million.
So now 40,000 remaining.
So that's 160 minus 120, and that's how much? 40 million, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And now they say invisible trade would be the exports of services, which would be the 300 million minus the 140 million. And how much is that?
260 million.
260?
Yeah.
That's 260 million. Now that is for visible trade for goods and for invisible trade, right? For services there. To find the current account, right?
Yeah, add the both together.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What do you get?
Yeah.
These are math things, huh?
Yeah, just a little bit.
No, 320.
No, something is wrong.
The export with regards to goods would have been 160, correct, miss?
160.
You know where we went wrong, and you know how I can tell you how we went wrong, right? Because the question is asking for a country's balance of trade. Let us look back up to the note here now, where we talk about balance of trade. If we look here, the difference between the value of imports and exports of goods is known as the balance of trade. So we're only looking at the visible one, not the
So
invisible.
it would be the export of goods minus from the imported amount of goods.
Yeah.
So the total exports with regards to
Just
goods.
now. Something is wrong with this question. Because that is what the balance of trade is, not so?
Yeah. Because that's why I started calculating at first.
Yeah.
I tallied up the total exports to subtract it by the amount of imports.
Yep. But the options here is A, negative 120 million, B, a positive 120 million, C, negative 200 million, or D, a positive 200 million.
I got positive 200.
Positive 200.
That was my calculations here. In exports.
Explain to us how you got that.
According to how I draw from the columns, I had the exports totaling 460 mil
Right.
and the imports totaling 260 mil. Exports, of course, is what going out, so money coming in, so that's a positive. Imports, we spending money. So if we subtract the two, we get 200.
Okay. What about the rest of y'all? What are you all thinking? Hello? Oh my God. All right. Let us look at this question here. I want us to look at this one here. We'll see the screen here, right?
Yeah.
Right. To see how this table looks here, let's look at number 52. Item 52 is based on the following table. You're seeing payments in and a positive sign, so that's payments coming in, and that's payments going out. Those are for goods and for services. Yeah? And that's the total there. Now, number 52's question is saying here now, the current account when the figures above are extracted is what? Meaning they want to figure out what is the value of the current account. Is how I want to get that so quickly. How do we find current account again? What is the formula for current account?
The balance of visible trade.
Plus the balance of invisible.
Plus the balance of invisible trade.
So you're going with A, right?
Honest.
It could be plus 50, but
I asked, huh? I am telling, I asked it. So I want to know what you all thinking. So which one are you going with? Take your time and work it out, and then we'll correct it.
Miss AI going E. Forget
You're sure?
AI positive.
Because this is how the questions will
I'm going
come.
with B. This is B.
You're sure?
B
We just
is
did the
another
formula, yeah?
positive. No,
We
hold on.
just did the formula in the note. So this is testing you in your head now to figure out if it is you really understand what's going on here.
You know, I say A because 5 and 5 is 10. So that's 1,050, but I ain't seen 1,050.
But you have to go back to what the formula is, Stephen.
I
For
go.
current account, we just did it. What about the rest of y'all? What y'all thinking? Jayon. Jayon?
That's 540 there or 560? I can't even see that.
That is
540,
540.
510. And 510.
I don't know. I said D.
All right, so let's go down and see what the answer is here. Number 52 is C.
See? Ready?
A.
Wow.
Come on, let me get
Did you do any calculation?
No.
Exactly. I told you all to look back at the formula that we just looked at in the notes and plug it in.
But the visible trade here is goods, correct?
Yes.
Because you can't see services, you can't see capital. And the invisible trade would be
All right, so let's
services,
look at the,
capital.
right, and let's look at the top column here. When they say payments coming in, what are we calling that? Export to import?
Import. What's coming in?
No.
Eh?
Payments, not goods. Payments.
Imports.
Export.
Export.
The only way you get money coming in is if you're exporting.
Yeah,
Carrying on.
selling.
Yeah.
Right. And the payments going out would be the imports. Right? So in order to calculate the current account, what do we know is the formula? Because it's broken down to three parts. First, you have to find the visible trade, then the invisible trade, and then you add the two. So in order to find the visible trade, it's exports of goods minus the import of goods, right? So that would be 300 minus 190. So what we could put to the end here? Right?
Just to start again, is visible trade plus invisible trade is the current account.
Right. So what do you think
Correct?
the answer would be? Was that?
Because I'm thinking invisible trade would be a service on a capital. And capital
Yes.
plus.
Yes, perfect. Correct.
So the service
But,
amount is 220. Oh yes, and I'll see it.
how I see it?
It's because a negative. The 220 from the 30 is 90. The 90 from the 300. No, I think my calculation is wrong.
Let's take a few minutes there and try to figure out what it is and how we got that. I wanted to use the formula that we just did to figure this out.
Yeah, miss, I think I get it.
How?
You get C because I get C.
You got C?
Yeah.
C is the answer.
Yeah, yeah, she showed
I
me
thought you
that.
said D was
Miss,
the answer.
No C.
oh, see.
I got C.
All right. So here's what
Yeah,
Dexter go
minus.
first, and then Stewie go first, or Stewie go first, then Dexter. You all decide.
Get
Flip
my
a
I
coin.
could go because I have it. I have. Alright, so what I did, so they asked for the current account. So in order to find the current account, first we need to calculate visible trade, invisible trade, and then add the two. So the visible trade is the export of goods minus the import of goods. The exports of goods in this case was $300 because that's money, 300 million, sorry, because that's money coming in versus the imports, which is 120. So when you minus the two, I got 110 with regards to goods. So the visible trade was 110. And then to calculate the other part, which was invisible trade,
Yeah, minus 50.
is the export of services minus the import of services. And according to the graph, that's 170 minus 220, which left up with negative 50. So services, to find the current, we add the two, balance of invisible trade plus the balance of visible trade, and that was 110 plus, in brackets, minus or negative 50, which is
60 plus 60.
and that's how I got the positive 60 million.
What do y'all think?
Yes?
Yeah, I'm listening. The rest of y'all agree, y'all follow, you're confused. What's going on?
Now that's saying I confused.
All right. Well, you tell us how you did it.
It's right for me. I you tried as a goods. I didn't matter to me if it was import or export goods. I just separate the goods.
How you
I
mean
get
it don't matter? Of course it matters.
Miss, in my head, it didn't matter to
Well,
me.
I
I
don't
just,
understand what you're saying.
I forget the capital, I forget the total, I forget about everything at the bottom. Totally. I just work the goods, which is import, well, the ticket touch, and the service, I just do it right there. I get my 110 on top, minus 50 at the bottom, and the services. I work it right there, I get plus 60, and I just stop.
Okay then. All right.
Miss,
Yo.
Right,
I understand the figures that Stewie say he gets, and I understand the figures that Dexton say he gets,
Uh-huh.
right?
Right.
But I need you to work out this to me because I ain't two different type of things here, and both of them come up with the same answer.
Well, just like in maths, right? There's more than one way to get
this is how I do it, Simone.
the answer.
Right, we know that.
Wait, let's hear it. First of all, I want you
Somebody-
to remind yourself what the formula is to calculate the current balance.
Current account.
Let's figure that out. What is the formula for it?
Balance of invisible trade plus
Find the
balance
current
of
account.
Yeah.
Yeah. Simone was saying it.
Sorry, Simone, he interrupted there.
oh, okay.
Yeah, sorry.
The balance of visible trade plus the balance of invisible trade.
And how do we come up with balance of visible trade and balance of invisible trade?
By minusing exports from imports.
Right. So here's what Stewie, I'm not Stewie, sorry. Dexter, take us over to what you did in using now the formula. If you want, you can share the whiteboard and you can go ahead and type that up.
That would be nice.
Okay, the
Yeah.
first thing I did.
I think you should, no, wait. I will stop my share. You go ahead and take the whiteboard and continue.
The whiteboard.
I'll do this, sir.
Okay, so you're going on share screen here. Right, so you click on it. Good, and you go on whiteboard option.
Share screen.
Right, whiteboard.
Oh, it's available. Oh yes. Okay, I
Yeah,
think
it is. Uh-huh.
it's disabled.
Because the host.
Was disabled attendee.
Oh, I have to change the setting here.
Screen
Why did
sharing.
I do this? All right, try now.
Let me try again. Okay.
Right, good.
So go to the share whiteboard, right?
Yeah, go ahead and try.
Okay.
Right, go ahead and you could use the text bar on top. You can click on text, exit this. When you click on text, you can type. If you use the pencil looking thing, that means you'll have to write, and that makes it a bit difficult. So go back on it now.
Okay.
Right. And you see on the top of the bar, you'll see something called text, T-E-X-T. Are you seeing that?
I see none pointing forward, 1 point back, X. Not seeing anything saying text.
Okay, well then you'll have to try to write it as best as you could. Because it's supposed to have an option. If you're using your phone itself, it's supposed to have an option that says text, T-E-X-T, so you can type. But go ahead. Let's not lose sight of what we have to do. Go ahead.
You all seen anything?
We saw what they just wrote just now. Yeah.
Just
Yeah,
could I
that,
explain it again because I think it might be easier that way because
All right, go ahead. Here what? I will type and you tell me what to type.
okay. If I'm
Yeah, come on. Tell it.
if I had my laptop, I think it would have been easier.
Yeah. So exit the screen share.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Laptop get corona.
All right. So you tell me, what am I writing?
So what I did after viewing the chart,
Right.
I looked at the amount of goods, in other words, the visible trade.
Okay, so we're looking at the visible trade.
So with regards to because in order to calculate the current account, we must first find the visible trade
Perfect.
and
That's the
also
first
the
part of the
invisible
formula, right?
trade in order to
Good.
know what to add.
Good.
Yeah. So with regards to the draft on this question, the visible trade would have been the 300 on the
300.
positive side, which would be the export.
Uh-huh.
That's money coming in because we send stuff, we send out stuff. And then the imports would be money being spent. So according to the graph again, to calculate the goods would be 300 minus 190 million, leaving us with a balance of goods, the visible trade of 110.
110. Okay. Right.
And then we went down to calculate the invisible trade, which is services, as you know, because we can't touch a service, we can't see a service, so it's invisible. So to calculate invisible trade would be the exporter services, which according to the graph here was 170 minus the importer services, which is 220, leaving us with a invisible trade of negative 50. So the balance of invisible trade here is negative 150. And then we went down to calculate the current account, and the current account is calculated by the balance of visible
Wait,
trade.
just double check me
balance
then,
of
see if my figures are correct.
negative, miss.
Right. Yeah, but the brackets would be negative.
Yeah.
Right. So
Correct.
current
So
account.
the current account would be the balance of visible trade, which in this case is 110, plus the balance of invisible trade, which is a negative 50, leaving us with a current account of positive 60 million.
This is where math and your butt math skills come into part here. So Simone, we see how he did that?
Yep.
All right, you sure?
Yes.
All right, what about the other people? Guys?
Yeah,
All right. Okay, perfect. So let's go back to this one. So we're okay with this one then? Perfect. Let's see if we can try another question here. Another balance of payment question.
The only thing to do instead of payment in, that come like import.
Yeah, no. The payment coming in means the money coming in, you know.
Yeah, the import the money.
No. You
With
It
that,
just
I
said
look
export. Mr. Payments coming in is export.
right. When I say payments, I mean money. That's it. Remember, the only money was coming in is through export.
Money
Was
coming
that?
in. I'm not exports, and now the exports we sending out goods. If it's sending out goods, in other words, you're selling goods, that's what the money coming in. So the exports is
Yeah, it's
where
like
the
a
money
reverse.
comes in.
Yeah, it's like a reverse.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. All right, let us look at number 51. What do you all think the answer for number 51 is?
51.
Yes, I give a
I'm
D.
thinking D, miss.
D for
D as
dog.
in bat or D as in dog?
Yeah, D.
D.
D as in Delta.
Okay.
Dog.
What about the rest of you?
This is 51, right?
Yeah.
Um, I think D.
D as in dog as well?
Yeah.
All right, just now. Let's see. Let's see. Anybody says differently?
I agree. I agree with Marina. D. D as in
Okay.
dog.
Let us check and see. Number 51 is A as in apple.
A. What? I feel that thing.
All are we wrong?
I think I
Yeah.
don't know where we went wrong there because we were looking at the current accounts. We're talking about the balance of payments.
Which of the following clearly defines the term balance of payments? Balance of payments
Yeah,
is total
we were
monetary
thinking
transactions
current
of a
accounts.
country with
Yeah.
the rest of the world.
Oh, payments and receipts.
Yes.
Yeah.
Got it.
Correct.
Because remember the total
We
value of goods
were
and
still
services
stuck on
balance of
current accounts.
trade. Yes. This is why I tell you all it's tricky.
Yeah, it is. They wouldn't.
Yep. That's why I told you all to be careful with the handouts. And that is why I told you to jot down the terms and what they mean. Because you see that balance of payment versus a balance of trade thing will confuse you. That is the reasons why I told you to jot that down separately to know it. Right? Let us look at another one. Look at number 53. Yeah.
Number 53.
Yeah, 53.
Mr. I think I guess C.
I don't like how they say wild guess.
I like choosing C.
C. Okay.
I know it's definitely not B and D because they said that they will not use. So it's between A and C. And I'm thinking C as well too.
Which of the following would not be used by the government in an attempt to decrease the imports of a country? They say not used there. Listening. So what's the answer there? See? Guys?
I'm leaning towards C. I don't know, definitely
Well,
not
it can't be
D.
A, right? No, wait. But if which of the following would
Huh?
not be used by the government? Definitely not subsidy either. So 53. What's your saying?
It has to be A.
Okay.
Which one is it? 53?
Yeah, 53. I'll go back up.
I only see in 58 on the screen. A? I don't know.
A? All right, so let's go see.
C is C.
53 is C. How you figure that out, Stewie?
Me?
Yeah.
You know, just wild guess.
Yes.
Because what is a subsidy?
A subsidy is a government grant.
Exactly. So obviously they would not go to do
Yeah.
that to decrease imports. What Charlie received in by?
I just guess anyways.
Just guess.
Because to ban something, to get a license for some and a quota, all that is, it sums up to the government will do something like that. So,
Right.
you know, I just do C.
Okay, so that's a lucky guess there, Stewie. That's not bad. Right? What you are thinking now from looking at these few questions here that relate to balance of payment? These multiple choice questions. What you are thinking?
I'll get 10 out of, about 5 out of 10. In
Oh my
that
God.
So how we, Stewie, how you didn't understand it before and now we understand it?
That's what I want to know.
Yeah, just guess.
You know, which
No.
one today?
I don't know about all of you today. All right, so it's
I think
6:30.
it's
You all want to
easier
take your
when,
customary
well,
break?
for me,
Huh? You all want to take your break and then continue with the rest of the handouts, or what do you all want to do?
yeah,
All right.
I good for either one.
Okay, so let's take a 20-minute break. We'll come back at 10 to 7, and then we'll continue.
Yes.
All right, cool.
Okay.
Right. So we finished with the current account. Now we're going to look at the capital account. So we need to make sure, for understanding purposes, we know what the current account is about and we know what the capital account is about. And we know that the current account recorded, I didn't hear you. Okay, right. So let's look at the capital account. This records the inflows and outflows. And we know inflows is money coming in and outflows is the money going out, right? Based on short-term investments and long-term investments. So for example, money inflows attracted by exchange and interest rate. When you think the interest rate, what comes to your mind? What comes
I
to
think
your mind?
loans when I think
What was that?
loans when I think interest rate.
Okay, all right. When I think interest rate, what about savings and investments?
Okay.
You all remember that handout in Central Bank?
Yes, central bank handout.
Right. When we looked at interest rates, and money supply.
Yeah.
Right.
Fair.
I want you to have that to the back of your mind, right? So we'll be looking here. So the capital account deals with the investment. What kind of investment? Your short-term investment and your long-term investment. Remember that your short-term investments would be less than a year. Your long-term would obviously be more than that. Hence the word long-term, right? This would look at recording your inflows and your outflows. All right, right? This looks at the inflows and the outflows, right? And it also has a part to play with the interest rates. And flows are related here in terms of your purchase of shares. What are shares? Shares are a certain tiny blocks that also allow you to own part of a company, right? For them, it is how they are able to source finance, not so? So when you're thinking shares, I want you to remember and look back now on public limited company and private limited company. Y'all can remember back then?
So.
Okay then. Y'all all right this evening?
Yeah, man.
Let's look at official financing. This shows how a deficit or a surplus was financed. That is by the IMF or from government borrowings, etc. What does the IMF stand for again?
Message is International Monetary Fund.
Perfect. The International Monetary Fund. What do we know about the IMF? What kind of institution are they?
There's lend money to different countries.
Perfect. They lend countries monies when they are in need. Sometimes they do their own assessments and approach to countries and all this and that, right? All right, good. So they are a form of official financing. We're good so far, yeah? And going to the IMF is one way that a country can finance their debt or their national debt. Meaning they can go to the IMF, approach them, possibly get a loan and use that money towards financing their national debt. All right? So let's look here at correcting an adverse balance of payment. An adverse balance of payments means what? What does an adverse balance of payment mean? Somebody please let me know. What does an adverse balance of payment mean? Good. That means you are importing more than you're exporting, basically, right? Good. Yeah. So let's see how we are going to correct this. Correcting it means to fix it, right? The first one we have here is to reduce domestic spending. Domestic spending means what? Spending within the country. Good. So you want to reduce the amount of spending that takes place within the country, right? The effect or the outcome of this will now mean that people consuming less goods because they are spending less, right? So that means they're consuming less goods, but particularly that of imported goods. Remember when we were talking a while back and we were talking about how we know Trinidad has a very high food import bill. And if you go to the grocery, we're going to see a whole name, a whole set of different brands. Right. And do we need all of that?
Nerd.
No, exactly. We don't need 50 different brands.
We again.
You understand? We don't need 50 different brands. So this is what we're talking about here. If you're able to reduce consumer spending, particularly on all these imported brands like COLLGE and whatever else, right? What you will do there now is increase the exports. So one way of correcting this adverse balance of payment is to reduce domestic spending, meaning reduce person's consumption on imported goods and increase your number of exports, right? That makes sense, no? So, right, because exports is what brings in the foreign exchange. Good. The next one now, devaluation. This means you are decreasing the value of a currency, the dollar, right? What this would lead to is that the country's exports will now become cheaper. So, you know, sometimes when persons and businesses reduce the prices to make things look cheaper, the only way they really do that, the only motive behind doing that is to attract sales. Now, so, because people like cheaper things, to be honest. If prices go, they will come and they will buy. So, one way the country could correct that adverse balance of payments would be to devalue the dollar. In so doing now, the value of your exports on the world stage would become cheaper. So people would therefore get more for less money. More of the product for less money, right? But the downside to that now is because our money will have less value, right? Their imports, the kind of products that we want to bring in will be more expensive. You realize that? Or did I lose anybody there?
You could go over again for me, please?
Sure. Devaluation of your dollar means you are making your dollar, right, cheaper on a world stage. Like, for example, you know how Jamaica's dollar has very little value, and the rupee, which is just for India, has also very little value. It's like that. So we're devaluing our dollar against the US. So maybe instead of being, I think it's 6.8 to 1 now. But instead of being 6.8 to 1, it probably, when they're devaluing it, you mean it might go to, what, 9 to 1 or something. And that makes it more difficult for us, right? Because now if we have to import, it becomes more expensive because now we have to use more of our money to get the same amount of imports we would have done before. And you get my flow there? So now instead of paying 6.8 TT dollars to $1 US, right, the person will be spending about 9 TT dollars to $1 US. So you realize how it becomes more expensive now for us to import because we have to spend more on the same amount of goods that we would have been buying. Confused there? Yeah?
A little bit, but I think I catch it.
Okay, no, but let's try it another way. All right. So let's just say now, let's look at Guyana. What is the exchange rate between Guyana and the US dollar? The Guyanese dollar to the US dollar. What's the exchange rate? 100,000 Guyanese dollar to what? 1 US?
To find out.
Google that for me.
100,000.
Google the exchange rate for Guyana to US. The Guyanese dollar to the US. $209?
Yeah, 200 Guyanese is 1 US.
Right. That's a lot, yeah?
Okay.
Now you're telling me it takes 200 Guyanese dollars to equal $1 US. That is good or bad? That's horrible. Yeah? That's bad. Compared to now, let's just say Trinidad, whose exchange rate is 6.8 TT dollars to $1 US. Look at the difference. 6.8 TT, $1. 200 Guyanese, $1. Google up how much TT equals Guyanese there for me now.
Like $30-something.
What? How much?
About 30-something.
Okay, so $1 is equal to 30 something US. I mean, Guyanese.
Last thing I will check.
All right, so let's look back at devaluation. So remember what we were doing? We were looking at, sorry, let's just be comparing Guyana to the US. And we said about 200 Guyanese with the ratio to $1 US, right? So let's just say now the Guyanese government were to devalue their dollar further. So instead of 200 Guyanese to $1 US, it became 300 Guyanese to $1 US. What do you think the effect will be on their ability to export and to import? Would the exports be more expensive or would it be cheaper on a global scale? Would the imports be more expensive or cheaper on a global scale? Because remember, Guyana would have to buy US, right? So they would have to spend their currency to buy the US. So if it moved from 200 to 300, what would be the case?
The import will be more.
The import
Exactly.
will be more expensive. Yeah.
Perfect. The imports will become more expensive and the exports will become cheaper.
Will be cheaper.
Exactly. That's exactly what number 2 here is trying to say. We get that point? Right, good. Foreign borrowing. It just means they're borrowing from foreign institutions, right? So obtaining foreign loans from friendly countries, so that's like your neighbor who, another country who you have a good relationship with, right? Or from international financial institutions like the World Bank or the IMF, right? The fourth one is exchange controls. This is where you limit the amount of money that can be spent on foreign goods or services. So you have a threshold then how much you could spend on foreign imports and exports. Sorry. Tariffs. This will curb the imports coming into the country. Because what's a tariff again? What's a tariff? A tariff is a tax.
Yes, a tax imposed on goods coming in.
Yep. Right, good. And a quota. This is a numeric limit on the imports. And it will have the same effect as a tariff, meaning limiting the amount of imports that you have. Remember, I told you to remember the meaning of those words, right?
Mm.
Good.
Mm-hmm.
Let us look at the last one there. You're increasing your exports. Incentives should be offered to local manufacturers, such as a tax relief, and extend credit facilities in industries involved in exporting goods. That way, because remember, you want to now encourage these local manufacturers to increase their production for exports. So like you would approach, let's like say companies like SM Jalil and Abel and all these other things. You will do like have tax relief there, therefore, to encourage them to produce more and export. Because if you increase the export, that's more foreign currency coming in. Also?
Mm-hmm.
Yes? All right. Let's move forward. And those would be the factors that we would use to correct an adverse balance of payment. So what we're going to do now is look at the disadvantages of a balance of payment deficit. And a balance of payment deficit is where we are importing more than we are exporting.
Exporting.
Right? Good. Now these are the disadvantages of doing that. To finance the deficit, we borrow money to pay for our imports because remember we already have a deficit, meaning we already in negative figures. So to finance this, we end up having to
You
borrow
would.
more. Yep, we borrow more US to finance our imports, right? When this is done continuously, the key word here is continuously. Sorry. Last week I was saying that even if a country has to have a balance of payment deficit in 1 year, but it's not a big deficit, it's not a problem. But if your deficit is growing and it's a continuous thing, so that means it's every year you're having a balance of payment deficit. That is a dangerous aspect there. Because now you will find yourself in a deeper hole. In the sense that you will now be owing more money, large sums of money, right? And then that could now evolve into a national debt problem. Like Haiti, for example, where they were so much heavy in debt because they couldn't come out of it. They were always in negative figures. And the only reason the IMF cleared them of their debt was after I think it was the earthquake, the major earthquake that happened. And they realized that all sorts of economic activity, they can't catch themselves basically. And they relinquished them or, cleared them of the debt. There. The second one here now we're going to look at is after a while, we'll become a poor country to trade with because remember, nobody would want to trade with a country like this, where they are heavy in debt, right? And therefore, if nobody wants to continuously trade with this person, what would happen to the money, the revenue you get from your exports? It will fall because nobody wants to buy from you, right? And then if it is that you continuously can't get your foreign exchange from exports, so from other avenues, it worsens the problem on the international scale, right? And in terms of international trade. The next one is that we'll be able to add to foreign reserves, right? The country will be able to invest or make more opportune purchases once you're able to actually finance the debt, right? The value of the country's currency will fall. That's not necessarily a good thing. That will be leading that tied up to the devaluation point. And we end up losing international status. You see, all of those things have direct consequences. Was that? I didn't hear you.
You're talking about the devaluation.
Right. Now that's a twofold thing. It can work either way, meaning good and bad. All right, so let's look at the advantages now of a balance of payment deficit. So there are certain good things that can come out of it, right? We can only have an advantage when the deficit is of a small amount and not continuous. Basically, it's exactly what I was saying just now, right? It's not a problem to have a deficit, but it has to be by a small amount and it cannot be a continuous thing, meaning happening all the time, right? So it can make a country more efficient and self-reliant because it acts as a wake-up call to make us reduce our imports and begin producing ourselves. That sounds familiar. Isn't that the situation that's going on now to an extent?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because remember, we have to import food. Our food import bill is extremely high, right? What happens now? This is a global issue, it's a pandemic. So what happens if it is that our imports, for some reason, God forbid, has to stop? And we now totally have to rely on our self-sufficiency to get food. Do you think we're able to survive like that?
25.
Because I don't know what you're thinking.
I think
Are we reliant enough?
To do without.
Huh?
We could survive
But you see, have we been developing much in our agricultural sector? I don't think so, to be honest. I think our agricultural sector has to be more developed because it's looked at as something that's beyond belittled. Right? I think this whole issue now is going to make a lot of countries realize that they need to be more efficient and self-reliant in terms of being able to feed themselves and to reduce the amount of money that they spend on imports and to try to produce it for themselves. It's food for thought, something to consider. Maybe, having, even for your household, having your own kitchen garden and all these other things. Right? All right, so if the deficit occurs in a current account due to the importation of raw materials, we know the current account deals with the visible trade and the invisible trade, right? So we're saying that if the deficit is happening there and it relates to importing raw materials, which a country may need for producing more goods and for economic activity to take place, then it could be an advantageous thing. Because now you're using that raw material and you're creating it into a finished good. These finished goods can now be exported and earn more foreign exchange than would have been spent on raw material in the first place. You saw that part? You understand that part there?
Yeah, miss.
All right, good. So that's why I say it depends on what the amount of the deficit and whether it's continuous or not, right? The third one, if the deficit occurs in the invisible balance, and we know the invisible balance deals with services, investments, and those grants and stuff, right? So if it's a deficit in the invisible balance and it's due to large amounts of money leaving the country, but it's leaving the country in the form of investments, then this is good because the investment will yield profits. That is the reward for the investment, profits. And that profits and dividends which be sent back home to the home country. So in any case, you're benefiting from that. So that's what I'm saying. A deficit on the whole is not necessarily a bad thing. It depends, however, on whether it's a large deficit or a small deficit, and whether it's a continuous deficit, and whether that deficit is in the current account, visible trade, or in the invisible. So those are the key points to take away from that section there, right? Sorry. Now let's look at the wrapping up part here. Terms of trade. So I want you to be careful in terms of when you take off from this handout, balance of payment, balance of trade, terms of trade, those key terms. So we don't get confused when we look at the multiple choice question, right? This is the rate at which exports are exchanged for imports. It is the relationship between the price of the imports and exports and its subset of the balance of payment. Now there's a formula for calculating terms of trade. You take the index of export prices, you divide it by the index of import prices, and then you multiply by 100. That's the formula there for it, the standard. If the export price raises faster than import prices, that means your numerator would be higher than your denominator, right? Then terms of trade would be known to be improving. We know exports and increase in exports is a good thing. A decrease in imports is a good thing too, right? So if this is taking place, it means that the terms of your trade is improving. But if the opposite thing happens, but then you know it's in trouble, right? And it's unfavorable. Because you always don't want your imports to be more than your exports. Right? Sorry. Number one there. You leave the consumer with more disposable income. And we know that disposable income means the more money you have in your hand to spend. That is after taxes has been deducted and all these other things, right? And if persons have more disposable income in their hand, then they can demand more. If demand is high, right, then it translates now to an improvement in their standard of living. It also means that if more persons are demanding products, companies or firms would be forced to increase their production. If they are increasing their production, it means more than likely they would have to increase employment of persons to produce those additional goods. If more persons are becoming employed, this means that the standard of living would also improve. It will also mean for the government higher income tax money there, right? And with that money, that they can now transfer that into improving the infrastructural services of the country, be it in the terms of the physical infrastructure, in terms of roads, electricity, or in terms of creating more jobs, like for example, URP and YTEP, right? And in that way, redistributing income, spending more money in terms of the schools and the hospitals. So these things here will be the effect that would take place, right? Once the index level in terms of trade is favorable. Obviously, if it's unfavorable, the opposite of these things will happen. Yeah? So that brings us there to the end of this topic. What I want us to do, you see how we looked at those multiple choice questions? I want us to reread this handout for homework. And I want you to scan through the questions, the paper 2 questions to the end here. And whatever issues that you may have in terms of difficulty, let us discuss it on Sunday coming, God willing, when we have the other class. Right? What are your thoughts? What's your feedback on this handout?
It's interesting but tricky at the same time because of how closely worded some of the terms are.
That's it. A balance of payment, balance of trade, types of trade, you know?
Yeah.
That's why I was saying to come up with a vocabulary list coming out of this handout. So you will be able to better understand and remember the terms. Maybe you could highlight it in a different color. Right? Sorry. And make sure you want to know what the formula is. Yeah? Any other takeaway points from this handout? Good or bad? Do you think you need to reread it one more time to get a better footing of it? What is it?
Yeah, miss, just to read it on it.
Yeah? Okay, good. So that's what I want you to do though. I want you to take your time, reread it on your own. If you can print it out, be really good. So you can write on it. Depends on your preference. Personally, I prefer to have it in hard copy. Write on it, do your jottings. If it is that you're still confused about something and you want to re-explain it, jot down those questions or those key points in your book. So when we come on Sunday, God willing, we'll be able to discuss it. And I want to clear those doubts. Right? In terms of getting the more question practice, there's a whole host of questions at the end of the handout. Look at it, try to attempt them so you can test your knowledge and your understanding on it. Remember the ones that we looked at in terms of the multiple choice. And that came from the syllabus. So you can always refer to the syllabus on the specimen paper and look back at that. Right? Anything else you all want to discuss? No?
Okay. Almost.
All right, so we okay so far with the hand?
Yeah.
All right, so that's your homework. Your homework is to reread it, do your jottings, whatever questions you have, make sure you note them down after reviewing the questions at the end, and we will discuss on Sunday. We can close here to now. Have a good night, and I'll see you all on Sunday, God willing.
Have a good night, man.
Thank you.